that some people feel, you know, we're in Iraq, we messed it up, now we have to stay. I mean, really, you know, here it is, we invade a country, we're occupying it, people are arguing, well, you know, the only way we're going to save Iraq is to stay. Kind of missing and inverting the cause and effect, the reason why Iraq is in a civil war. The reason why is because our occupation is fueling the insurgency. And everybody knows that. This is why most military experts have long ago conceded there is no military victory here, and our soldiers are caught in the middle of a civil war of our own making. This is a deep tragedy, what's happened in Iraq. It's a stain on our national history, and it is it calls for a response of conscience and morality. Really, we have to ask the question again of who are we? So, I've spent the last year meeting with people around the world, talking to people who have been connected with UN missions in peacekeeping and security, looking at the situation as it is and saying, how do we get out? How do we change this? And so, here's the plan. And it's embodied in legislation, which I've written, HR 1234. It starts with the assumption that the occupation is fueling the insurgency, that the longer we're there, the deeper the war is going to become. I mean, indeed, we lost 6 of our troops last night. It's clearly a call for a new direction. So what's the new direction? That the U.S. says that we're going to end the occupation, close the bases, and bring the troops home. Now that means that Congress has to stop funding the war. Congress, by the way, you know, be with me on this because I'm going to try to move through this as quickly as possible. Congress, by the way, had no responsibility to pass a supplemental. We didn't have to put up any legislation at all. There is money in the pipeline through mid-July. And that money can be used to bring the troops home. We had no obligation to give the president, as Congress did, but you know, I didn't vote that way, but $97 billion to keep the war going well through the rest of his term. $97 billion. We had no obligation to pass that. The United States must take a new direction. Again, close the bases and the occupation, bring the troops home, but what do you do about the Iraqis? Many people want to focus on Iraq as an American problem. Look, we did something to Iraq that is so abhorrent, but we still have to do something to try to protect the Iraqi people from even more violence. We understand it. But to help the people at the UN, I've come up with this plan that would create a parallel process that you bring in peacekeepers and a security force that you get with the help of nations from the region and the international community to move in as our troops move out. Now many people would say, well, we'll never get any help. Well, that's because we're occupying the country. But once we let go of those policies, I have met with dozens of ambassadors who all agree. U.S. ends the occupation, it's a whole new world. Takes the troops out, close the bases. So you have a parallel process of moving the troops in. I've been told it would take 2 to 3 months to mobilize that kind of a security force as the U.S. moves out, UN and regional security peacekeepers move in. At least half of the force would have to come from Muslim nations. So there'd be some kind of a cultural and religious connection. But that's not enough. Let me tell you the rest of the plan. It's a plan for reconciliation between the Shiites, the Sunnis, and the Kurds, which will not happen with the United States occupying. So you get the world community involved, and then you have a chance for a real program of reconciliation. It is a program for honest reconstruction, which will not happen as long as the Halliburtons of the world are still in Iraq. Let me share with you a quick story about how serious this corrupt reconstruction program has been and why everything must change. As soon as the United States invaded Iraq, the promise was to rebuild Iraq with, guess what, Iraq money. Blow up the country, And then you say, well, we're going to use Iraq oil money to restore Iraq. And there wasn't much flinching in Congress when that was said. And so, tens of billions of dollars were shipped over to the United States. The money was converted into $100 bills. One shipment of 108 million $100 bills, $10.8 billion, shrink-wrapped in bundles of $75,000 each, put on pallets, loaded onto a transport plane, shipped from the United States to Baghdad, the Coalition Provisional Authority. $10.8 billion belonged to the Iraq people, was supposed to go to rebuild Iraq, disappeared. The reconstruction that was done, shoddy, cost overruns, cost 50 times what some of the projects should have cost. The Iraqi people didn't get jobs. This reconstruction program has been a criminal enterprise. And we have to end we have to call names here because the Blackwater group represents the regularization of mercenaries so that we create a private army that can keep a war going. And in fact, its intention is to keep a war going because it goes beyond policy, just way beyond. They have no connection to policy. As long as there's a war, they make money. All these people have to be gone. There has to be an honest reconstruction program. There has to be a real program for reparations. According to the Lancet study that was published last June, a conservative estimate, statistical analysis showed 650,000 innocent Iraqis lost their lives at the start of the U.S. conflict. Today, being April 2nd, it's quite possible that perhaps as many as 1 million Iraqis have been killed. I want you to look around at the person next to you. Just look around. Look around you. Because you know what? The people look just like us. They feel just like we do. They have the same ambitions for family and for homes as we do. They have the same concerns of family as we do. They have the same hopes for the future as we do. They're made of the same stuff as we are. They may pray to Allah. These people are brothers and sisters. And our nation, in our name, has been responsible for their murder. Now let me tell you, we need to redeem the soul of our nation. And a program of reconciliation and of reparations between the United States and Iraqi people is mandatory. We've got to find a way to repair the war. And we have to stabilize energy and food prices and make sure that if the IMF and the World Bank come in, they're not going to be putting these structural adjustment constraints that cause Iraq to be privatized after the fact, and Iraq has to have total control of their oil assets again. So Betsy asked the question, but just one little footnote. When Congress passed its supplemental legislation, they left in a provision that privatized Iraq's oil, that forces the Iraq government to pass what's called a Hydrocarbon Act, which mandates that Iraq engage in these production agreements with oil companies and leads the way for the privatization of $6 trillion in Iraq oil assets. I brought this up at a Democratic caucus meeting 2 weeks ago, and most members of Congress weren't even aware of it. And so after I made them aware of it, one of the congressional leaders said to me, "Oh, we'll take that out of there." Not a chance. That didn't happen. And so where we are now is that we've created the way for, well, we're occupying Iraq, and when we control their government, we're now saying you're going to privatize your oil to the benefit mostly of U.S. oil companies.